Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Kate Hamilton Health Podcast. So in today's episode, I chat with Orla Power. So Orla Power is a health, fitness and lifestyle coach, personal trainer, nutritional advisor and pre and postnatal specialist. Her philosophy centers around making fitness enjoyable and food guilt-free, allowing clients to reach their goals while still actually enjoying the process. As a pre and postnatal specialist, she is particularly passionate about supporting women through all stages with practical evidence-based advice. So we have the most amazing conversation. We chat about absolutely everything and anything. We chat about gym floor to online and the difference between a gym personal trainer to an online coach, and both of our transitions to becoming online coaches and why that experience of working with people on the gym floor is particularly important. We talk about nutrition, diet culture, calorie deficit, and how being in a calorie deficit doesn't necessarily mean tracking calories. We talk about parenting, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, the scales, and we actually talk a little bit about life changes that sometimes need to be made to be able to live an authentic, healthy lifestyle. I really think you will all get so much from this episode, and myself and Orla have so much in common. I really enjoyed this conversation and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hi Orla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's so lovely to connect, and I'm really excited about this conversation because I think we both kind of come from the same kind of wavelength when it comes to health, fitness, wellness. So it should be a nice chit chat.
Yeah, definitely. And the madness of being a mom and all that.
Yeah, balancing it all.
With it.
Exactly, yeah. So look, I suppose, do you want to introduce yourself to listeners, explain a little bit about you and your journey so far?
Yeah. So I'm Orla Power. I am an online health fitness coach. I don't know, Kate, what to even call ourselves these days. Bit of everything. Health, wellness, nutrition. I specialise in pre and postnatal coaching as well. So working with predominantly females. So yeah, I started out as a personal trainer. I had done some nutrition as well. And then I was doing a lot of my work was all in person on the floor. COVID came and then I kind of transitioned everything online. In fairness, I did have a little bit online already and I was so grateful that I did. So I wasn't just starting from scratch, with COVID. So I guess I just grew it online, and then the gym that I was working in just never reopened when everything else did. So yeah, I was kind of pushed online, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because after that, then I got married and had kids, and so it's suited, I suppose, to me at the moment and for the madness that is my life. My online coaching business, then everything is completely online. Now I do meetups and that kind of thing, but it's predominantly fully online.
Amazing. And how long did you work as a personal trainer? Like, were you years in the industry on the gym floor?
I was actually a hairdresser, funnily enough, for 11 years first. And then I changed then in 2017. So what was that, 2017 to 2020? Was COVID? COVID is 2020. I can't believe that's 5 years ago now.
I know, it's mad. My whole concept of time is just warped.
Oh, mental. So you know yourself, in COVID, it's even hard to remember. There was times where we were back in the gym again, then we were out again, then we were back again. So I would have dipped in and out of it, I suppose, the in-person stuff, probably for another year or two. And then we actually went to Thailand. We were one of those COVID couples that our wedding was cancelled 5 million times. So eventually we ended up going to Thailand. I think that was the year we got married. Was it 2022? We went for 8 weeks, and then that was, I think, when everything reopened, and it was like Freedom Day in Ireland and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember my mom ringing me and being like, "You're going to have to fucking come home because the wedding is going ahead this time." When we came home and there was only 8 weeks to the wedding. And when I came home from there, then I was like, no, this is it now. I'm not going back into the gym floor. It was a lot. It's very hard to rely on people showing up, and you've got cancellations and you're changing people's appointments, and you're renting a space in a gym, and it's a lot. It is a lot. Now look, I think I'm so grateful for the years that I've done it, and it really helped to build my business, etc. But again, yourself, as your life changes, as family comes into the equation, as you're doing crash runs and drop-offs and stuff like that, it's very hard to manage it all. It really is.
I think that fork in the business has happened, like in the fitness industry as well. And I think a lot of people are kind of really not aware that it is kind of two separate jobs, And when people are, hiring an online coach, they need to look at whether it is an in person personal trainer they want or an online coach, because it's very, it is very different being with someone on the gym floor and working with the movement patterns. And I think it's a really, really important part of an online coach to have that in-person experience so that you understand how people move for when you are programming for people, or even to be able to give cues and tips online. It's so important to know what a real person in the gym moves like, and don't presume. I think a lot of younger coaches that are coming up and coming straight online, they don't know how a 38-year-old woman like myself moves
Yeah.
compared to their 22-year-old body. You know what I mean? And I think it's really, really important. I just wanted to interrupt this episode to talk to you a little bit about the Kate Hampton Health group coaching service. So with your group coaching, this is if you're looking for some structure and support to reach your goals, whether that is health, fitness, fat loss, strength, within a really supportive and really motivating community. Included in the group coaching, you will have personalized calories and portions reviewed as necessary and directed towards your goals, food lists, recipes, meal plan ideas, step goals, home or gym based workouts, depending on where you want to train. And they are changed up every 8 weeks. We have a lot of mindset work, app access, so you'll have access to the Kate Hampton Health app, weekly yoga classes on Zoom, WhatsApp group community, a weekly group Q&A with myself, fun challenges like step challenges with prizes to win, a daily habits form, a weekly self check-in form, and then a fortnightly progress check with your coach as well, so that you are getting that accountability side of things. You'll have a library full of lifestyle guides, library full of lessons and seminars, all updated regularly. There will be weekly group Zoom calls with myself and the team. We've regular guest seminars as well. And it is a very, very hands-on group coaching service where we have you from every angle. So for the group coaching, it is €249 for the first 2 months. And then it rolls into a monthly membership of €79 per month from month 3 onwards, for as long as you want to stay. You can't just join this group coaching whenever you feel like it. We do intakes on this every 8 weeks. So the next time our doors are opening is the 23rd of April. The doors will open on the 23rd of April. This always sells out. When it does, the doors will close, and we will start on the 5th of May. So this is the perfect time if you want to get summer ready and you want to feel confident and feel amazing in your clothes, in your own skin. Now is the time to get signed up. So watch this space. I will be advertising it 23rd of April. Make sure you grab your spot, be ready, and I will see you then.
And I'm sure you work with as well, women in their 50s and 60s and
Yep.
beyond. So
Yep.
I forget that too, that, for me, it was normal just to do my couple of years, on the gym floor. And obviously it transitioned, I suppose, unplanned, but it worked out like fine in the end. And I did have my experience. But, you forget that nowadays, that's not actually the normal thing that coaches do, is to go into a gym floor. When I was hairdressing as well, there's people that do online courses and there's people that just go to college and then come in on the salon floor and just presume that like they can do it all. Whereas I had done the trade route. So done the scrubbing, done the cleaning, done, all the crappy work. And that's part of what makes you, that practical experience. So yeah, it's an interesting thought when you actually look at it that way. And I think I even saw in my clients, and I'm sure you're the same as well, some people were happy to move online with me, but other people then, not only were they not happy, but I might have even said to them, like, this isn't going to suit you. Like, you need to find another
Yep.
in-person coach, because you need to be one-to-one in the gym. And I think when you're doing personal training, it is a lot more exercise focused. And when it's online, I do just find it is a lot more like the nutrition side of things. And
Yeah.
like, there's no one way to explain it all. Sure, there's not, but it's
No.
definitely different.
Yeah, for me personally, I can help people more by working with them online, because your exercise in the gym is such a small percentage of your overall healthy lifestyle. And to be able to focus on nutrition and sleep and mindset and limiting beliefs and daily movement in the form of like walking, even, all of these things that need to be worked on. And I think sometimes when people start on a weight loss journey, they think that they just need to go to the gym. And it's like going to the gym is a tiny piece in the puzzle of an overall healthy lifestyle. And I would argue it's really not the first piece.
Oh, 100. Honest to God, I've even done content and stuff on this as well. And I'm like, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I am a personal trainer and I'm telling you that you don't have to exercise to lose weight. And that's a fact. Not that I'm not encouraging it. I want everybody to be exercising, but there is so much more that comes before it. So I really do think like that people that want to completely transform their actual lifestyles, going to a personal trainer once a week for an hour gym session, it's not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think knowing what you want when you're signing up to a coach, like if you're like, I need help to lose weight, to fix my lifestyle, to start learning about what type of movement I should be doing, online coach all the way. If you're like, I want to start lifting weights, heavy
Yeah.
weights in the gym, and I'm not sure how to do that, then go to a personal trainer because they're going to show you how to do it. Because you'd see people in the gym trying to do things as like, let's take like, a barbell or a DL. And if you don't know how to do that properly, you can hurt yourself or, doing a deadlift or whatever. So it's really, really important. And what's great about the gym now is, even I know personal trainers are expensive. And I think, I actually think personal trainers probably don't charge enough for how much value they give to people's lives, but it is expensive to keep up a personal trainer long term. I know that. There's so many gyms with wonderful small group personal training now, and it's a great way to meet people and have community. And I worked in that setting for a while. And then I worked in kind of the more commercial gym side of things as well. And there is that personal connection with your coach, but also the other people. And it is a great entrance to learning how to lift weights effectively. But it's really important to know that if it's your whole lifestyle and if it's like you want to get healthier, you want to lose weight, then definitely an online coach is the way to go.
And I think it like what you said there at the start, it's just important for people to know that they are two different things. Like I'm sure, Kate, that you probably have, because I know I have clients who are with me online, but also have a personal trainer, or they're part of CrossFit, or they go to
Yes.
some of these semi-group personal training classes or whatever, semi-group PT. I can't even say, you know what I'm trying to say, but they're in part of these small group training. And they say to me, like, is that okay? Like, if I keep doing that? And I'm like, no, that's amazing if you keep doing that, because
Yeah.
I know that you're in a good place with your exercise and we can really focus on your lifestyle, your nutrition, your, like you said, like going for your walks, your sleep, your stress, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's gold, I think, for people when they realize, because a lot of people don't, they just presume it's all the one, and it really isn't.
Definitely not. And I suppose, look, let's talk a little bit about nutrition then, because I think this is the most important thing. If you're coming to a coach looking to lose weight, we have to focus. It is like people, but don't people say like 80% nutrition? I'm sorry, it's like 98%
Yeah.
nutrition as far as I'm concerned. Like it's nearly all nutrition. But I think we're coming from such a damaged place. Diet culture has a lot to answer for.
Like,
And
how much time have we got here?
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Okay, so nutrition. Do you know what? I just find recently, and I literally only had a conversation with somebody about it earlier as well, another coach, that, and I'm sure, Kate, you're the same. I feel sometimes I am like a parrot, and I'm like, people must be sick of listening to me talk about the importance of protein, talk about the importance of fiber, talk about the importance of, varying your diet and all the stuff that we all preach about. But then you get somebody that will say to you, oh, but is protein not just for bodybuilders? And then I'm like, oh, okay, no, I do need to keep preaching the same stuff over and over again. I don't know, do you find that sometimes you feel like, am I actually boring people with saying the same things? But then
Yeah.
you're like, you're not, because people aren't listening, or I don't know, people are so tied into, how did diet culture from over the years, how did the likes of, the slimming groups, without naming names, really take this much hold of people that we are still struggling to get people out of that? The
Yeah.
old ways of thinking of, oh, your sins and your points and all that kind of stuff. And bread is bad for you, and, fat's going to make you fat. And it's a hard job that we have to get
Yeah.
people out of that. But I just don't know what it is that warped people so much into it that they can't get back out of it, or that like it's a struggle for us to pull people out of this kind of thing.
The slimming clubs, like being afraid to use real olive oil or, having to
Yeah,
use fry light in your pans or not even thinking about eating an avocado or nuts or peanut butter
yeah,
because of the amount of points or sins or whatever that are in these
yeah,
things. And then having women come to me that are not like, protein is low or whatever, but the healthy fats that they're eating is scarily low, which are so important for our joint health, our brain health, our hormone health. And there's no wonder that women are suffering huge issues with cravings, with the low protein, the low healthy fats, and a really high sugar, I suppose. Yeah, like a diet high in carbohydrates. And I'm not demonizing carbohydrates at all. Like, we need them. But what I find we need to do is, rather than trying to start taking away things, we need to start putting things in. We need to start pushing our protein levels up with real food sources. And we need to push up our healthy fats, and really have to move away from these beliefs, because if they were true, they would have worked, and they didn't.
I think like the way I try and describe it to people, or if I'm trying to explain, because I'm like, how do I get somebody to believe me over believing something else that they've read online? But like the way I look at it is, and it's the same with yourself as well, what we do isn't invented. It's not a made up plan, or it's not a certain type of diet. I'm like, we deal with nutrition and, fats, and healthy fats aren't something that we've invented that we think you should include in your diet. Protein isn't something, like, this is actual nutrition. We're not biased. It's not made up like points are made up, or it's not made up like sins are made up. This is the facts and this is the science, and we know when there's evidence there to support that we need to have our carbohydrates, like you said. Obviously, they need to be limited, but just like our fats, but they need to be limited as well. There's essential fats for a reason. There's essential proteins for a reason. And it's not something that we've invented, or, any of the plans or diets or, whatever journeys I take my clients through. This is what I say to them. I'm like, this isn't something that I've just invented. This is
Yeah.
what I've learned. This is what I've studied. This is nutrition. And I'm sure you see it as well when some females are like, oh, but when I was doing, we'll say Slimming World, or when I was doing whatever, I used to do this and I used to do that. I'm like, yeah, but that was made up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was just an invented diet, like the Special K diet, like Slim Fast, like they're all made up, and they're not based on evidence. And it is frustrating trying to get it across to females, but it is the best feeling in the world then when you can get it across and you see the effects of it.
Yeah, I think a general rule of thumb, if a diet has a name, it's probably not the way you want to go. If it's got a name, the whatever diet, then just steer clear. Or if it's a brand, like if it's like any type of, yeah, like Slim Fast, or even motivation, Slimming World. And I find even a lot of the information that is being put out on the internet, there can be doctors with very extreme opinions, which I think is the most harmful. The likes of doctors coming on and talking about how we really need to be eating a ketogenic diet, or we really need to be eating only a plant-based diet, or like two opposite, like eating only meats and fats, eating only plant-based foods, putting these extremes out there and saying you need to do this for your health. They're taking really small margins of scientific studies, pushing them, and not looking at the bigger picture of the other more studied areas in nutrition. And it's really, really frustrating. But I think the best thing to do is just stay away from the names, and bring it back to basics. But like, we need to bring it back a few generations. Like, if we all went back and ate like the way our grandparents ate.
Think of how your granny used to cook. What did your granny used to make for
Yeah.
dinner? Like veg, meat, and spuds. Go eat that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? This is
exactly. With a bit of
modern
real
science.
butter, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Or whatever. Like,
exactly. But it's
it's
very hard. Exactly what you said there. And I've been thinking about this a lot recently as well. It was another podcast that came up. You've probably heard about it. It's been talked about quite a lot this week. I guess that was on the Mel Robbins podcast. But again, I'm like thinking of the people that are listening to this, and like, how are people supposed to know that it's horseshit, basically, what some of these
yeah.
people are putting out there? How are you supposed to know? And like me and you, Kate, like, how do we convince people that we're the ones that are telling the truth?
It's so hard. Like, I think if you actually looked at the evidence of, if we looked at chronic disease back in the 1950s, 1960s, or 1970s, even, compared to now, it's going to say it all. We're eating too much, first of all. It's the actual quantities of food that we're eating is a huge issue as well. Too much overly processed foods and the marketing of them, but also then when we throw in these extreme diets, and I know most people, bar maybe the big businesses, are trying to help in what they believe, but by putting out an extreme diet saying you can't eat carbohydrates or you can't eat whatever, people think, oh God, this is what I need to do for my health. And they're so worried for their health, and they go to
Yeah,
the extreme. And then it eventually rebounds and drives them back to the ultra processed foods that they're trying to escape from. When
yeah,
actually it's like, what can we add in that's really good for us? What's going to make me feel good? And it takes you away from the restriction of, oh, I have to take away my chocolate to take, because you don't have to take away anything. It'll naturally fall off and you'll be left with just a little bit of the bits that you enjoy in a balanced way.
I really think that, like, if it's any approach that people can take, it's like, what can I add into my diet? I really also thinking as well, and I know it's very hard for people, especially people that are very overweight and really want to get rid of weight. But if you really just focus on improving your diet and feeling better, look at the weight loss as like a byproduct. It will always follow once you're doing that. But
Yeah.
I think where people really get it wrong is they want to start coaching or they start these diets, or even people that come to myself or yourself is like, yeah, but I need to get 2 stone off, or I need to get 3 stone off. I'm like, look, we can't start like that. You have to, I'm going to say to you, you need to be eating more fats, you need to be eating more protein, you need to be exercising, you need to be moving more. They're the things that you need to actually be focusing on, not I need to get the scales down. So I think that's probably a massive problem with people as well. The focus is in the wrong place. And if they never focus on the actual process itself and how to get themselves there, they're just never going to get there. But people just think if you're just obsessed with 3 stone or 10 kilos or whatever it is, that's going to make them get there. But it never works out like that. You know, it really
Yeah.
doesn't. We do need to change the way we're looking at, you know, and back to the basics, back to the like non-sexy stuff of your, like you said, your veg, your meat, your potatoes, your porridge, with your protein source at breakfast, your sandwich for lunch. Do you know what I mean? Have a chicken salad sandwich
Yeah.
and your soup for lunch. If people ate boring like that, they would be in a far better position, and they'd be avoiding the extremes that way as well. It would tick a lot of boxes. But again, I think it's because it's not sexy enough, it's not exciting enough, it's not extreme enough. This is why people don't catch on to it. They feel like, no, but I need an extreme, I need to do something
Mm.
drastic. And they don't. They just need patience, time, and basics.
That's literally, I always say, like, time and patience. And like, I know,
Yeah.
like, fat loss is simple. Like, a healthy lifestyle
Oh,
is
it
simple.
is.
It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's like, it isn't easy, but it is simple. And it starts with simple steps. This is where, like, a coach like myself or yourself is able to help and, you know, and tell you what to focus on first. But it is a case of, you know, do you remember that interview, that Good Morning? It was a Good Morning interview that James Smith did years ago, where he was like, you know, think about your dog. If your dog is overweight, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Feed it less and walk it more. It's like, but we're the same. Like, it's true, right? In the most
Yeah.
simplistic form, we need to eat a little bit less. But the problem is we go so extreme. We eat way too less and then we
Mhm.
overeat, which is a whole
Yeah.
different issue. Eat a little bit less, move a little bit more, go for a walk every day, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, whatever. Just do more than what you're doing. You can always add from there. But then it is I suppose, the complexities of the types of foods that we're exposed to, and, you
Yeah.
know, the macronutrient balance and the micronutrients, and, you know, fiber, and, you know, like, it is so much more complex than that. But as a starting point, I need to eat a little bit less and I need to move a
Yeah.
little bit more.
This is the problem. I think that that's probably not extreme enough for people. Like you said, if you're not walking at all now, start going for 10-minute walks every day. And people are like, sure, that's not going to do anything for me. I'm like, but you're not doing anything at the minute. Like, you have to start somewhere. People want you to tell them you need to start doing an hour of cardio every second day. That's what people want to be told. Even though they're not
Yeah.
going to do it,
Yeah.
they want to be told the extreme. And it's like, no, just bring it back. Like you said, just move a little bit more, eat a little bit better. Now, obviously, your environment, there's a lot of things that come into that as well. But actual fat loss and how it works is pretty simple. It's just getting people to actually do it.
And there's so many different avenues to do that with my clients. Like, in my coaching business, we a lot of the clients, we will get them tracking calories, and I think that works well for some people. Some people do not want to track calories. And what I always say is, in order to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, but you don't have to track calories to be
Yeah.
in a calorie deficit. It depends on what type of person you are. I'm a numbers person. I like to tick boxes
Yeah.
and I like to know where I stand so that I'm being as efficient as possible. That works for me.
Yeah.
Other people, that is their worst nightmare. And
Yeah.
there are so many other ways around it. And I think bringing it back again, like, keep saying, I feel like this episode's going to have to be called Back to Basics or something. But that
Look
it
at
is, you
that.
know, 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
At least 3 meals a day. You don't want to go long periods without eating. On every plate, you want a protein source, a carbohydrate source, a healthy fat source, with some vegetables in 2 of those meals. Because I wouldn't be a vegetable at breakfast kind of girl, but, you know, some people can.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're having vegetables in your lunch and your dinner, that's 3 meals a day. And then I'm like, keep your snacky snacks to like 300 calories.
But like, even if you did that, because that's actually what a lot of my clients do. Did that, is that proper English? I don't know. But anyway, so they would have their breakfast and I'm like, get a fat portion in, get a carbohydrate, get a protein in there. And then some might have, you know, if they're having eggs, they might have like tomato and rocket, or if they're having porridge like me, they might have like raspberry. So there's micronutrients going in there. With your lunch, do the same thing. With your dinner, do the same thing. And then with your snacks, have a bit of fruit, bit of fiber, whatever, if you're having a banana or something, but also have your curly whirly or your twirl or your protein bar, whatever it is that you want. Genuinely, if people just followed that routine without even tracking a calorie, they would do really well. I do agree there is some clients that will never track a calorie and they actually don't need to track a calorie. Then there's other people then that will do really well while doing it. There's no real fit. But it's funny what you
Yeah.
said there about the calorie deficit. I don't know, do you notice this? But I think a lot of people think a calorie deficit is a type of diet.
Yes. Or they
You know,
think it's tracking calories. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
calorie
people
restricted
that say,
diet.
"Oh, I'm trying a calorie deficit now for the summer." I'm like, "What?" Do you know, it's and I actually did do a post on this as well. I'm like, a calorie deficit is not a type of diet. Like every diet has you in a calorie deficit.
Yeah.
So I think, there's probably lots of people Googling, like, how do I do a calorie deficit? Like, this is the kind of diet that I want to do. But whether
Yeah.
you're watching your portions or whether you are tracking calories or, whatever approach you're taking, ultimately you will be in a calorie deficit if you're making progress.
Yeah. And let's clear it up. A calorie deficit is when your body is burning more calories than what you're consuming. And that doesn't mean burning with exercise. We're burning calories even just being alive. We can
Or
enhance it with walking
chatting.
and steps. But it's moving a little bit more, eating a little bit less, and that little
Yeah.
bit less being the hugely important part. If we go down the restrictive route, which again is the extremes, it seems too boring. And this is where I think, like some people will always say, oh, tracking calories is really bad, it promotes disordered eating, it's
Oh,
restrictive. And I'm
no, I
like, we measure our blood pressure, we measure our finances, I'm like, it's actually just a way of keeping track of what we're eating. And it can be really beneficial, especially if you're someone listening who tends to go extreme and be like, I'm cutting out everything. I'm like, if you actually get tracking your calories with just about 3 or 400 below your maintenance per day, it'll actually teach you how much you can eat. It can educate you on what you're eating, what's in what you're
yeah,
eating, and how much more you're actually allowed to eat to be able to
yeah,
sustain it long enough, because fat loss
yeah.
takes time. It's a slow, boring process and
It
you need
is,
to be able to stick to it. So you
unfortunately.
need to be able to enjoy it.
I think it's important to know on that as well. There's a lot of people that are very anti-tracking calories, but I don't think it's the tracking calories that's the issue. And this might come across like a bit blunt, but it's the person. If that person has issues, like that's their issue, and that's a different story altogether. That's something that they need to work on. But for a lot of people, if you're in a good place with your relationship with food and all that, tracking calories can be quite a positive experience. But there is certain people, of course, that it's never going to suit them, and it's something that they, if they've got obsessive behaviors or, they get addicted to the likes of MyFitnessPal and stuff like that. Obviously, being in a calorie deficit or tracking calories is not suited to that person. And, I would have clients that I would never get them to track calories because I know that it's not a good fit for them. But I don't think it's the actual tracking calories that's, the issue. It comes down to the individual.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there's never a one size fits all. And
No.
I will always have an open mind to everything I do see and hear in relation to nutrition, because I always want to be
Yep.
curious, never want to close
Yeah.
off my mind. There's a lot of shit out there, but I'm
Yeah.
always open
Yeah.
to hear it. But I think that brings us nicely onto the topic of mindset, because
Mm.
what I have discovered from working with hundreds of women is we can know all the stuff. We can know how much protein, carbs, and fats we're supposed to have. We can know what calories we're supposed to be tracking. We can know how to use
Yeah.
MyFitnessPal. We can know it all, and something is blocking us. And this is what I think is the biggest issue for most people in reaching their goals, is the unconscious beliefs, like the limiting beliefs, the subconscious behaviors, the coping
Yeah.
mechanisms that we develop. And the older we get, the worse that gets. So it's so much easier to get a 20 something year old to lose weight in general. Obviously, I'm generally speaking, because, well,
Yeah.
first of all, their metabolisms are in top shape. They only have themselves to worry about and they can just go about it. Whereas as we get older, we start having kids, we
Yeah.
have more responsibility in work, we're climbing the ladder, we've got husbands or we've got ex-husbands, or,
Yeah.
we're raising kids on our own, we've got aging parents or other relatives that we're looking
Yeah.
after. Our
Yeah.
responsibilities pile up and pile up. And I actually find, in my experience, women in their 50s have it the worst. It just gets to a height where it's like their responsibilities are so high, the
Hmm.
stress is so high, they've forgotten themselves somewhere along the way. You've got perimenopause or full blown menopause in there as well. And
Yeah.
it gets really, really tough. You could know it all, but it's not a whole lot of help if you can't dig deep to resolve what you need to resolve.
And I think as well, a lot of females in that age bracket have got to a stage where they just kind of accept this is it and I can't actually do anything about it anymore. And I think that that's an issue because you're trying to crack, no, you can do it, but you need to do X, Y, and Z. But they're like, have already resigned to the fact that this is just how I'm going to be and I can't do this anymore. And I think as well, a lot of people in that age bracket now, what would have happened to them is probably when they did have kids and they were in that postpartum phase and the after kids phase, if they didn't have any help or they didn't have any guidance or they weren't being coached or they, didn't understand anything to do with health, fitness, or nutrition after kids. And now it's, we'll say 20 years later, like there's a lot of damage after being done along the way. Whereas I would hope, and I suppose this is probably why I love working with pre and postnatal as well, is because now when women are having kids, I love that, there is so much help and support out there, about rehabbing afterwards. And I'm not going to say like getting back in shape, but like improving themselves again, getting confidence again, and repairing all of that. Whereas I think, 20 years ago, so people that are in their 50s now, when they were in their 30s having kids or in their 20s having kids, that wasn't as readily available. So I think that that's probably a big issue as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Jesus, like it wasn't readily available back when
No.
I had my oldest. He's 15 now. So like that's
Yeah.
15 years ago. I was 23
Wow.
when I had him. And I remember the midwife being like, make sure you do those pelvic floor exercises. You'll thank me when you're 40. And now I'm coming up on 40 and I'm like, God damn it. Why I didn't even know what
Yeah.
they were back then because they didn't tell
No,
me.
no.
Like within the health service in Ireland, and I know I've had a conversation with a pelvic health physio from the UK. It's the same in the UK. There's not a whole lot there in the public system. You do need to go privately to pre and postnatal coaches like yourself to
Yeah.
get the support you need. But the gym I worked in as well, the girl who runs that gym, she does pre and postnatal classes. So she has like a babies and barbells class, and everyone brings their
Yeah.
babies and, do their
Brilliant.
postnatal stuff and, start lifting
Yeah.
weights again. And it's fantastic to see that there's so much more support around there. But I think in relation to going back to the women in their 50s,
Mhm.
I think it's really important that it doesn't matter if, along the way things haven't gone according to plan and you didn't have that support and, that you feel like you've lost pieces of yourself along the way, because that's what life does a little bit. Like it does chip away at you and it can be very hard. And when you start putting everyone else first, which as Irish mammies, we tend to do that, this is your time now and you can start piecing yourself back.
Oh, I think it's like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? This is such a good opportunity and time, especially because a lot of women, again, we can't speak for everybody, but a lot of women will say in that age bracket, like their kids are somewhat reared, but they're not at the stage where they're like caught up with grandkids and stuff like that yet. So it's like, this is your time, to really focus on yourself, and you can give yourself back the time, and you'll see a lot of them saying they struggle with weight around their midsection, or, they've never really got into exercise. All those things can be done then. It is never, ever going to be too late. And I think, if anything, it's such an incredible thing to do because you're defeating the odds or defeating like what you thought about yourself, what couldn't be done. And I love that. I love,
The
love
only thing you
that.
need is an open mind, be
Yeah.
willing to take in new ideas and let go of things that
Yeah.
haven't served you. And I think this is where coaching becomes really important. And I see it like
Mhm.
most of the women that come in through my doors are in their 40s and 50s. It's so amazing to see. I think what we're talking about with nutrition, about how it doesn't have to be extreme, it is baby steps.
Mhm.
And when we take on that on board, that it's like, okay, all I have to do is baby steps. I can fit that in around caring for my parents and, going to work and driving my teenagers around or whatever it is that you need to do. You're like, okay, I could fit in a 10-minute walk to start. Sure. I could definitely structure my meals a bit better.
You probably see that, like the amount of people that would reach out and be like, "Oh, I'd really love to start like coaching Orla, but like I have 3 kids, or I'm always at matches in the evening time, or I spend Saturdays at the side of a sideline, so I don't really have time for X, Y, and Z." Like I got a message very similar to it this morning. I don't really have time for exercise because I'm committed to like kid sports and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, this is okay. Like, but you just need to start. Everything is work aroundable. Everything is. You can, no matter if you are working 7 days a week, if you've got 10 kids, if you've got no kids, if you're in your 50s, if you're in your 30s, if you're a young single mom at the age of 20 and studying on the side, like everybody has an opportunity to improve themselves. And especially, again, I know, we're talking about the two of us, but when you're working with coaches like us, because we are realistic, we're not, military style, and We know what it's like to live in the rat race, I suppose, at times. And that, me or you are not out training 7 days a week and eating 1,200 calories and, getting 12 hours of sleep every night. We're living in this madness as well. So it just feels really good, I suppose, when people trust you and you're like, this is how it can be and this is how you can have it. It doesn't have to be that extreme or that, I'm too old or I'm not fit enough or I'm not young enough, or everybody has an opportunity to do it. So yeah, I think it's such a feel good, isn't it, in our jobs to be able to do that
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah, definitely. I think a really important thing as well is in your 40s and 50s, we talk about patience with fat loss. You have to be realistic in the fact that it is slower. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. There is no quick fix to this. It is slower, but that's even more important for it not to be super restrictive because it is going to be slower. And also, what I've noticed from working with a lot of women through perimenopause is quite often the scales won't budge, but huge changes will happen with body composition and measurements. And eventually the scales will start to move. And I think there's a huge fixation with the scales. So let's talk a little bit about the difference in, I suppose, weight loss and fat loss.
So, what I will say on that note as well, just for anyone that is listening, it's the very same postpartum with the scales. Number one, if people are breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, I always say that to people, like, look at your boobs, how much they changed in the day. Like, the scales is going to be changing along with that. If you've got fuller boobs, if you're just after doing a feed, if you're due to do a feed, obviously hormones come into play massively postpartum, the very same as in perimenopause. Hormones are going to come into play hugely there. What else is quite similar, I think, is sleep. Sleep disruptions, stress levels being up and down as a result. That's going to affect the scales. There's just so many things when you're looking at hormonal changes and different phases that females are in. It's like during your PMS week, your scales is going to be all over the place. But I think really, first of all, that women have to know, you have to just accept this. You're never going to just make your scales move the way you want it to move. You're never going to be able to stop it acting in crazy ways in perimenopause. You're never going to be able to stop doing that during PMS. You're never going to be able to fully control it when you're postpartum. So I really think that women just have to accept that. But
Yeah.
people find that really hard to do.
But like you think about it, I'd never just say, look at you and be like, oh, Jesus, Orla looks great. She must be about 10 stone. Like, we never think that about someone else. When have
Never.
you ever wondered, like, oh Jesus, yeah, Mary across there now, she's lost a load of weight. She looks great. She
Yeah.
must be 11 stone now. Like you don't we think in sizes, but we also think in energy and mood and like, oh my
Yeah.
God, she's got
You
a great
can't
energy
judge.
about her. She looks great in her clothes. Did you see her out
Yeah.
at the night out or whatever?
Yeah.
That's what we look at.
But if you think about it as well, right, when you get a new client starting with you, and this is what always makes me laugh too, people will fill out a form and, their consultation form, they'll put in their weight. But if I see 80 kilos, 90 kilos, 100 kilos, I never instantly vision, oh, that's what this person must look like. You haven't a clue.
No.
You have not got a clue because 70 kilos will look completely different on everybody. 80 kilos will look completely different. So, when people say to me, oh God, Orla, I'm, such and such a kilos, I'm like, that means nothing to me. Like, it doesn't mean anything to you. And
Yeah.
if you were to ask anybody that, they would find it really difficult. But look, back to, I suppose, what you were saying at the start there with the difference in weight loss and fat loss and weight gain and fat gain. Again, I suppose you could talk for hours on it, but you're going to have to learn how to understand this and you're going to have to get a little bit educated on it. I'm sure you've got podcasts done on it, Kate. I know I do myself, rather than just being that person that's like, oh, the scales is up or the scales is down and leaving it dictate your mood. Like, learn how the scales works for you. If you're perimenopausal, like you said, and you weigh yourself for a week or weigh yourself 2 weeks or at certain parts of the month or whatever it is, and you can see it going crazy, then I just think, again, in the best way possible, but like, you're stupid to leave that control you when you know that no matter what you're doing, it's still going to do its own thing anyway. Like, we can be banging our head against the wall, like when it comes to the scales, but no matter what we do, even if you were to go off and starve yourself for the next week, I still can't tell you that the scales is going to drop,
I think we don't realize just how much, and I think you made a really good point with the postpartum tied in with the perimenopause.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the hormonal
Mhm.
fluctuations,
Yeah.
the stress, the lack of sleep that happens in both of these stages. And actually, even
Yeah.
if I take myself as an example, who's just traveled back from America the other day,
100%.
okay, and so the stress, the lack of sleep there, I stepped on my scales yesterday morning. Now I've no emotional attachment to it. I knew
Yeah.
like my ankles had turned into cankles. Like I'm so filled with fluid from the long flight, and I stepped on the scales, and I'm 9 pounds up. And I laughed because I
Yeah.
was like, I've got
Like there's
nine
no
pounds of
way.
water in me, nine
Yeah.
pounds of water. And I stepped on the scales this morning, and 4 pounds that has gone already.
Yeah. I was going to
Because
say there's no way you gained 9 pounds of actual
no,
fat.
no. And I know I had 3 meals a day pretty much, and I was walking lots, and I had a lot more calories, I would imagine, than what I would usually do at home. But it was 6 days. Like I know, like at tops, I've probably gained a pound of body fat.
But think
Even
of how many people would have been in that position yesterday and absolutely had a meltdown thinking, "Oh my God, I've gained 9 pounds
I've
and
undone it all. Yeah, I've
I've
undone it
undone
all.
it
Yeah,
all." And they
exactly.
haven't.
I've just
They
popped it on
haven't.
my stories there because I think it's so important, and to realize that it is water, and this is the point. So that was lack. Obviously, that was altitude as well, and being on a plane, but it is the stress of traveling long distance and the lack of sleep from it as well.
Sleep.
So I think that's a real point when it comes to postpartum, with a new baby, not getting enough sleep and the stress of all those changes in your life. When you're going through perimenopause, night sweats, not being able to sleep properly, not really kind of feeling in control of your own
Yeah.
body. It's the same kind of stress in
Yeah.
very different situations.
Yeah.
And these are two times in your life when the scales is really reluctant. Fat loss will still happen, but you have to
Yeah.
give it a chance. But the problem is most people, they're giving up a couple of weeks in because they're not
Because
seeing the
of the
scales
scale.
move. Yeah, because they're like the
Yeah.
scales isn't moving, it's not working.
Yeah. So I genuinely do prefer, and I'm sure you're the same, anyone postpartum, anybody perimenopausal, just not to use the scales. It's different if people are in a good place with it and I think kind of take it with a pinch of salt. But in general, if it's not serving you, which for anybody like that, it's like the week of PMS again, or like the week of your period, your scales is not going to be a good judge of your of character, let's say that week. So if it affects you negatively in any way, then what are you getting on it for? Just leave it off. Because again, people who are negatively affected by the scales and get annoyed during PMS, get annoyed postpartum, get annoyed in perimenopause, they are the people that give up easier. And it's really sad because the reason they're giving up is because of the scales, even though it's not even telling the truth.
Yeah, and they could have lost pounds of body fat and
Absolutely.
be holding on to
But it's
pounds
not.
of fluid, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of my coaches, Lindsay, she's fantastic, but she has, I don't know, she probably has it on her Instagram page. You can go and check them out if you want to, anyone listening. But she has two pictures of herself before she ever started in the gym. And when she was working towards her photo shoot prep, or was it afterwards, when she gained a bit more muscle. I can't remember what it was, but when she was in incredible shape, she weighed the exact same in the two pictures
Mhm.
and looked completely different. In
Different.
her new one, like, she's got strong shoulders and legs.
Mhm.
She's snatched at the waist, like looks really
Yeah.
strong, really healthy. And in the other one, she doesn't look unhealthy. Yeah, she holds more weight in her middle. Her legs
Yeah.
are much smaller, and she's the exact same weight, but a
Yeah.
completely different body. And I
Yeah.
think that this is how much we like, and these people that you're watching on Instagram or wherever you're watching people that you think, wow, they're in incredible shape, but they look so slim or this, that, and the other. They more than likely have a hell of a lot of muscle on their body.
Yeah.
They're more than likely spending a good amount of time eating plenty of good quality foods,
Yeah.
and they're not starving themselves and then binging because they can't stick to it.
Absolutely. And I just wish people could see that and also understand. I think probably part of it is maybe when you see people like that, or even if people are looking at me and you, do they think that we have maybe an advantage or we find it easier? I think that that's probably a hard part of it as well.
I do think I have an advantage in the sense that I can go to the gym at 10 a.m. That my kids are all in school. I don't have to work another job anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. I used to work as a primary school teacher for 15 years, and then I transitioned to become a coach. And for a long time, I was working two jobs, and it was a lot of really stressful period. I know what it's like to have to train late at night when you don't feel like it. I don't have to do that anymore. But because I've lived both, I do know that okay, it is a bit easier for me to get it done then, and there is a bit more time there. But I'm also running a business, and for me, I always feel really grateful when I'm in the gym at 10 a.m. on a Monday. I'm like, Jesus, this is great. And I do know that struggle of having to go out to the gym for 7 p.m. when you really, especially in the middle of winter when you really don't want to. But this is where mindset comes in. It's like, okay, that might not be ideal, but if that's the only time in your life that you can do your training, you don't need to train every day. even if you start off and you got 2 workouts in a week and was consistent with it, you went every Monday and Thursday or something, and you were like 7 p.m. Monday and Thursday, I'm not even going to argue with myself. I just go. And you just go because you'll never feel like it. Do a 5 minute action, commit to 5 minutes. I feel like after I've done the warm up, if I really don't want to do this, I can leave. I used to do this all the time. I used to go to a CrossFit class and I used to always be like, oh, I'm so tired. And literally, I would be like, I don't know that I feel very well. Like, I think I'm too exhausted. I might be a bit lightheaded. I don't think, and I'd just say, Kate, go do the warm up. You can leave after the warm up if you want to. I never left after the warm up because once I got moving, I felt amazing. And always, I never, ever, ever regretted pushing myself to go.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So yeah, look, everybody will have their own pros and cons and their own advantages and disadvantages, and whether you're working or not working, if your kids are in school or if your kids, are not in school yet and they're home with you all the time. And I don't know, does anybody really excel in it being ideal for them? But and even like what we spoke about earlier on, like you can't compare yourself either to a 20-year-old who's living at home and gets all their meals handed to them and doesn't have a job and is in college but is off now for the summer. So they have all the time in the world. We can't compare to them either.
They also have the social life and the drinking culture and all of that to contend with. So everyone has their struggles, or they also have their lack of self-belief, a lot of them, you know what I mean? They don't know who they are. So like I wouldn't want to be 20 again if you paid me. Like, and I think it's so easy for us to look at every stage of life with rose tinted glasses and be like, oh, wouldn't that be great? Like sometimes, some of my clients in their 50s, they're like, oh yeah, me and my husband now are off down to the south of France for a month or whatever. Sure, all our kids are grown. I'm like, I'd love if all our kids were grown. And then I'm like, no, Kate, stop, you don't. So it's so easy to, we can do this. Like, I came back from Miami. I was at a business thing, and the lads at the business mentorship were heading off to Mexico afterwards because they don't have kids yet. But then I'm like, a lot of them will settle down someday and they'll lose all of this. You know what I mean? Whereas then I'll be living my best life when my kids are raised. We have to appreciate what stage of life we're at. And I think it's really important not to always be wishing for more, like wishing for something else. But what I will say, and this is another belief I have in relation to barriers for reaching your goals, or barriers for setting up a healthy lifestyle, can actually be, and this is a really big statement to make, and for some people it might feel unhelpful, but I do feel it needs to be said, and I'm just going to say it. It can be your whole life. So if you hate the life that you've created for yourself, you're not a tree. Move. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And this is probably about as harsh and as real as I get. I'm like, if you hate your job, if you hate your partner, if you hate where you live, if
Yeah.
whatever it is, I know there's some things that we have to do, if we've got sick people in our lives. And I'm not talking about
Sure.
that. So I'm talking about the everyday stuff. I'm talking about there's no reason why you can. I'm not saying everyone upend your lives now and make huge changes.
Yeah.
Okay, Hamilton told me to, but start making little changes so that there is space in your life for you.
Again, I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I'm trying to even think who it was, but this is what we were discussing, like that there is people out there that will find it all hard enough because they're in a job that they absolutely hate, but at the same time they're never going to do anything about it because they just presume this is what everybody just hates their job and I have no choice but to do this. And then that makes their home life much more stressful. And, dropping and collecting the kids is a lot more stressful than a result. And then they couldn't even think about exercise or looking after themselves because, everything else is such a chore for them. But it's hard to get across to people like that, and I feel like even what you were saying there, it is all so true. And I absolutely would say the same thing as well. But I do find then as well, the people that need to hear that and the people that need to do something about it are the people that won't listen to a podcast like this, or else they will and they won't want to hear it, this kind of stuff,
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be the case of, changing your job or,
Yeah.
whatever. I understand not everyone wants to do that, but creating boundaries, I think, and, just being like, this space in the week is for me. But if there's something that's making you sick to your stomach with worry and stress, or you're losing sleep over, something needs to be done about that. Otherwise, it's going to make you sick, and you only get one life. Like, this is your life. Don't be living it for what you think other people want you to do. It's so important. When I left teaching, that was such a big step for me, and my parents thought I was having a midlife crisis. I think a lot of my friends or people around me thought it was just I'm losing my mind altogether. What is she doing? Everyone was like, "Oh, are you back to teaching yet?" And in my head, I was never going back. I had a mortgage, 3 children, like not even 3 young children. 3 children are really starting to cost me, and it was really like I had this guilt and this sense of like irresponsibility, that I was being selfish, that I was being irresponsible, that this is not a clever move to make. But there was something in me that was like, no, I have to do this. And it's funny when you make big decisions like that, like those feelings of guilt and of, insecurity, of it's all really, really normal. You're not going to get the support that you're looking for from others until you don't need it anymore. That's what I've learned. You need to believe in yourself. Like whatever your goal is, whether it is, a career move, or whether it is, a house move, or whether it's, leaving a relationship or starting a new relationship, or whatever, whether it is just creating a healthy health and fitness lifestyle for yourself.
Yeah, changing your
It
lifestyle.
Yeah, creating that time for yourself, getting people to mind your kids so you can get out and do things for you. That can all feel, all of those emotions can come up. But if you're looking at everyone else for reassurance and support, you're going to be waiting. You have to believe in yourself first. And when people see you doing things, then they're like, "Oh, wow, look what she just did."
Exactly. Exactly. Like it's just pushing people or getting people just to make that first little change. It's like anything. I suppose it's like fat loss, it can seem scary and it can seem like it's not possible. And then you just need people just to do like a week or two and then, they start to see, oh, this is actually working now. And that's what motivates you to keep going. But yeah, I mean, if I could get everybody, and like you're saying yourself, you could encourage everybody to do something for themselves, for their life, for their health, for their fitness, like we would. But yeah, some people are just a lot harder to crack, I think, than others. Or like what we spoke about earlier, like you're talking about you women in your 50s or your perimenopausal women, they just presume that I just can't do this
Yeah.
or I wouldn't be able to do that. Your limiting beliefs, you're just accepting that it's too late for me, or I don't have the time, or, I'd never be able to undo everything that I've been doing. It's beliefs for a lot of people, but people don't see that, they really don't see that.
The only way you change beliefs is by creating evidence. And you create evidence by doing. So sitting around thinking about things, what you can and can't do, just do. And this comes back to exactly what we're saying about the lifestyle changes and the nutrition. Baby steps. What's
Yeah.
one thing I can do today to move me towards my goal? Just adding in one thing. When that starts to feel easy, add in another. You're never going to grow in your comfort zone. It's just not going to happen. But it doesn't
No.
mean you need to fire yourself off the cliff. When you're like, oh, this starts to feel easy. Okay, now it's time to add in the next thing. Like it should never feel easy. It should feel good and really rewarding, but easy is not a place that you want to be in all the time.
No. If it doesn't challenge you, it's never gonna change you,
Yeah, but
like, there really
overwhelm is not a place you want to be in all the time either.
no.
So it's to find that balance between that easy and that overwhelm, and get somewhere in the
Yeah.
middle, and then add the next thing on. And so that's exactly what we do in my coaching services. They
And
are in these habits bit by bit, depending on the client and what they're looking for. But anyway, look, I just realized we're coming towards the end of this podcast, and this has been the most amazing conversation. I didn't even mean to go into a whole life
I
change
know, talk
topic,
all
but
day.
that's what I love about the podcast. You never know where it's going to go. I'm going to fire one question at you before we finish.
Wow, okay.
What does the word health mean to you?
Health, do you know what? It's funny, I like, the first thing that came into my head instantly was longevity. That's the first thing that came into my head.
Yeah.
So I think that's obviously what health for me at the moment, and I think this all changed when I had kids, and I'm expecting now again, I'm 5.5 months pregnant.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
yeah, so for me, health for me is being healthy enough to live long enough to enjoy my kids, to hopefully enjoy my grandkids someday. But not only, be in a bed looking at them all, but I want to be healthy enough to be up and out with everybody and being mobile. And, that really is what health is to me now. Now, obviously aesthetics and stuff like that all come into it, and I look forward to my postpartum phase and rehabbing and all that kind of stuff as well. But to me, health really is about the future and future proofing myself, my family, setting good examples, and being, as they say, adding life or adding years to my life, but also adding life to my years as well. That I want to be here for a long time, but I want to be healthy enough to be able to enjoy it for all that long time. Everything I'm doing now, walking my dogs, going out to the park at the weekends, going out to the beach, I want to be doing that, in 50 years' time as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what health is for me. It's like the longer, bigger picture. And maybe that just changes when you have a family. I don't know, but that's what it is for me anyway.
Yeah, I love it. Such a good way to finish, and so true. I couldn't agree more. And you're
Mm,
right, like that quality, the quality of the longevity being so, so
yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah.
If anyone would like to reach out to you, where is the best place to find
Orla,
you?
I'm Orla Power Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook, on gmail.com. .ie, it's Orla Power Coaching. You'll find me.
Yeah, just Google her, you'll find her, or search her wherever you listen to or watch your social media. Orla, thank you so much. I have loved
Thanks
this
so much, Faith, for
conversation.
having me.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And I would just ask for one thing from you, if at all possible, could you make sure that you subscribe to the podcast? It really does make such a difference. If there's a particular episode that you've enjoyed, please do share it in your WhatsApp groups, share it on your stories, tag myself and the guest in your stories. All of these things really do help to grow the podcast. And obviously, if there's anything you'd like to reflect on, please do leave a comment. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next one.